Hi and welcome to Full Circle. I'm Emily Wilmson with the City of Fort Collins, and we're here today to talk about affordable housing. Our guests today are Sue Beck-Furcus, who's a social sustainability specialist with the city. Welcome, Sue.
Thanks, Emily.
And we also have Rebecca Everett, who is a city planner with the City Planning Department. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thanks, Emily.
So let's talk about affordable housing. It seems like it's been kind of a topic that's been a buzz phrase around the community. What does the city do about affordable housing? What's our long-term discussion about that? Who wants to start?
I'll start. Generally speaking, we have a history of funding affordable housing projects through our grant competitive process that we do. We've been doing twice a year for 20-some years, and we get a lot of federal funds that we are able to target and invest into our community that way. We also have some incentives for affordable housing. For a long time, the city has realized that affordable housing is something that is a part of what we need to have available to our citizens. Mm-hmm. Along with affordable housing, lately we've been looking at overall housing affordability.
Okay, great. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, so City Plan, which is the city's comprehensive policy document that reflects community values and guides the choices that we make, and the work of all of the departments in the city, also specifies certain goals and policies related to affordable housing, specifically ensuring that we have housing that's available for a range of incomes, a range of housing types all throughout the community, that's well distributed, as well as protecting our existing affordable housing stock and ensuring that we're expanding housing affordability in the long term.
Okay, so why is affordable or housing that's affordable important to a community? Why should we be concerned about that issue overall? Who wants to take that?
Well, fundamentally the question that we have to ask ourselves is Fort Collins a community where the people who work here and have jobs here can also afford to live here? It relates back to a lot of our community goals related to access to services, supporting children through seniors, the full lifespan, as well as our environmental goals, our sustainability goals, making sure that we're reducing commutes and vehicle miles traveled, and building a sense of community and making sure that we remain a very livable place with a high quality of life.
Okay, and it's more than just human services, social services. It's more about the triple bottom line and sustainability. I mean, maybe Sue, you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, housing is so fundamental to everyone, to anyone. And so when you look at housing, you do start with a spectrum of homelessness, and then you go to self-sufficient housing. And all along the way, we need to have good choices for people. And we need that for everybody. And if we only had let's call them elite opportunities, expensive opportunities, then where would our workers live? And I think what Rebecca was talking about is when you get to the point where everyone has to commute in, there's a lot of hidden costs for a community, the roads, the infrastructure, the lack of tax revenue. So it's not healthy to have only in commuting of your workers. A healthy balance is important. And what we're seeing is that right now, at least in Fort Collins, we do have more people coming in than leaving, but that's very cyclical, and that could be related to us coming out of the recession. I think before the recession, we probably did, I know we did, have more commuting to Denver.
Right.
So it is interesting to see how all of these things interrelate. And housing is just so critical that it does touch every person and all sorts of elements of life that we don't necessarily think about right away. Of course you think, yeah, I need a good place to rest at the end of the day, but the choices we make about housing really affect so much else. And our budgets, our household budgets, because as you have more transportation costs, they say drive till you qualify, because most times if you leave urban centers, housing affordability goes up, pricing goes down, but your transportation costs go up. Mm-hmm. So it's really a balancing act, I think, on the individual level and as a community as well.
Right, and the commuting also affects our environment, right? You get more emissions in the air, you get more, those are the kinds of things that City Plan is really addressing, trying to keep people here living where they work, basically.
Yeah. The city's had a growth management area since 1979, which establishes a boundary just outside city limits around the city of where we want new growth and development to occur. And the focus of that is to bring development interior to the community through infill on vacant properties, redevelopment of existing properties, and reinvestment in some of our core areas that may be underutilized, like Midtown. And so that's been a main goal of the community that's been expressed time and again by residents. And that reduces our sprawl, that reduces emissions, and it enhances our environment. It relates back to the Poudre River Corridor, our air quality, a lot of the things that are very valuable to the people that live in Fort Collins.
And on a social level, when you work where you live, you just have so much more opportunity to engage, to be a part of your child's school experience. You're not spending hours every day in neither place. And so it really is advantageous to people who make it work. You know, obviously there's choices and not everybody chooses that, but ideally that should be an option. You should be able to live where you work.
So, and you're trying to do something about those options right now with the Housing Affordability Policy Study. Tell us about that. You're the project manager on that. What is that, and what is it trying to achieve?
Okay. So, beginning in January, we have embarked on this journey that's called the Housing Affordability Policy Study. We engaged consultants that are helping to first really look at our community, assess what is the current health of our housing system, where are there some distressed populations or stress points, and what kind of policy might we apply to try to provide a truly equitable housing system where we do have good choices for people. And so I started the process by engaging an internal team of many different departments in the city. We have several people from the planning department, including Rebecca, who's fabulous. And we have the attorney's office on board, economic health, environmental health. We have a communications person. We have and finance. We're all looking at this together because, as I said, again, it touches so many things and it is so complex. So we do have a draft of the study available on our website at fc.gov/social sustainability. Has great information about the community. And if I could back up a little, we also did a social sustainability gaps analysis this year. And that was kind of the jumping off place. So gaps influenced HAPS. And
HAPS being the acronym for Housing Affordability Policy Study.
Right.
Okay.
So we started with their numbers because they looked at a lot of things, including housing. And so we took what they did and we drilled down to really analyze things a lot deeper. And our efforts, what we hope to come out with at the end of the day, are policies that apply not only to the market of today, but will withstand the market vagrancies into the future. Because really what we're looking at has to transcend market cycles. We're in a very hot real estate cycle right now in our community, and that's certainly affecting not only affordability but accessibility. The inventory is down for many reasons, and we're experiencing this really hot cycle. We do think it's a cycle. It eventually will end. We have a lot of inventory coming online, but we still have to look past all that and try to find policies that for the long term will really guide our housing system and keep it healthy, because we have a decent our housing system, especially for ownership, is pretty decent right now. I know that may not feel that way with the hot market. And even for rental, we have a lot coming online, so we want to see how that affects things before we get too heavy-handed with policy. And yet, there's ways we can positively influence things now that we're looking to do.
Okay, so obviously it falls to social sustainability, the department at the city, to really kick off this process. But like you said, you have experts like Rebecca on there. Rebecca, what's your role on this task force looking at housing affordability?
So I was brought into this process to represent the planning department, and we're responsible for two different charges: long-range planning for the neighborhoods in our community and citywide, as well as reviewing new development proposals as they come in. We don't make a distinction between affordable housing and market rate housing generally when we review new developments, though we do have some incentives and relaxation of certain city standards that come into play when affordable housing is involved, including reductions in landscaping requirements, some additional allowances for density or building height in some situations. Okay. So it's something that we consider both from a long-range perspective and making sure that we have a complete community that has the right balance of jobs, of services, of housing, of grocery stores, of parks, but also making sure on the micro level that each individual development is contributing back to the community and helping us achieve those citywide goals. So as a team member for the Housing Affordability Policy Study, we're looking at the implications of potential policy changes and the housing demand and needs as it relates to many of the other citywide goals that we're trying to achieve.
Okay. And you guys have some early recommendations that have come out of this study. Can you kind of touch a little bit on those?
Sure. So really what we're looking at is recommendations that influence existing city policies and programs, and some that really are trying to incentivize the development of targeted housing that we need.
Okay.
Or preserve important stock that we have. And so that's kind of how we divided it out. We're looking for opportunities to make sure we're hitting rental markets and ownership markets. Mm-hmm. And we want to look at trying to, this is kind of a hard concept, but change the alignment of the existing inventory that we have so that it lines up better with people's income.
Okay.
So in any event, that's a long way to get to my recommendations, but some of the things we're recommending that influence existing programs are things like increasing home buyers assistance. We see that certain home buyers assistance program is now available to people making up to 80% of the area median income. And we think that there are people really in the top end of that, the 60 to 80%, that if we were able to provide a little more assistance, that would get them over the hump and into ownership now. And that's an advantage for the community as we see prices go up. So we're looking at just increasing that amount, and we're looking at HUD numbers for 2015 and underwriting, and we'll be able to put that into motion. Okay. There's other things like incentives that we either have on the books but haven't been incentivizing anything, or targeted new ideas that we think might actually provide the kind of units that we're lacking overall. So one of the recommendations is to look at our fee waiver structure and see whether or not we could tweak that so that we could be incentivizing the highly subsidized products that are the hardest to build and the hardest to get financing for. We're also looking at our land bank properties. We own 5 land bank properties, about 50 acres throughout the city. We bought them with the intention to hold them between 5 and 15 years. It's been well over 5 for all of them and close to 15 for some of them. So we're looking at, is this the time to activate it? What does that look like? Mm-hmm. Do we want to hold them on for even later in the game when there's less land available? So we've got a lot of things that we're still looking at. We are going to a work session with council on November 25th, where we're really hoping to get council's help in refining where our focus should be. But it's exciting work, and really overall I think that our housing system is going to be improved with both market forces and policy at work.
Okay. Anything to add to those recommendations? Is there anything one thing we've been hearing a lot about, on the news, this tiny home phenomenon. What is that something that would fit in here, or what is that about, and how is the city maybe looking at that?
Yeah. So,
and what are tiny homes? Tell people who don't know.
Yeah, so tiny homes are sometimes called micro units. Also, they're a smaller housing product. It's actually not a new phenomenon. It's a resurgence of more of a traditional housing type in a lot of ways, going back to the turn of century. These small homes on smaller lots. that bring neighborhoods a little bit closer together, a trend away from kind of the large lot suburban homes. And after the recession, as new products are coming online, as their demand is shifting, we're seeing a change in preferences. We're seeing baby boomers and millennials that want to come closer into the urban core, that want to downsize, want to spend their incomes on other things, entertainment, activities, services, travel, rather than housing costs. So we're seeing a number of different housing types that we haven't seen a lot of in the recent decades. Tiny homes being one of them, carriage houses on the back of people's lots, co-housing models. So we're seeing a lot of different trends that are exciting, but also can be challenging to accommodate with our existing regulations and codes. So we're looking at ways to adjust, to tweak our regulations to make sure that we are accommodating the preferences that we're seeing in the community, while also being careful to consider what the long-term implications of those changes might be as it relates to our land supply, our housing stock, protecting the character of our neighborhoods, and incorporating affordable housing in a way that really builds up our neighborhoods and the quality of life in the places throughout the city.
So this is where a housing affordability policy study recommendation dovetailed well with what planning was already doing. So for instance, we had a recommendation that we do away with the minimum house size that's currently in our land use code. We do have that at 800 square feet. And if you think about it, 100 years ago, they were building houses less than that we do have in our cherished Old Town neighborhood, and people are vying to live in those. So like Rebecca said, the change in demographics is so influential to the housing system as a whole. And so we're responding to that. And we're watching as we do have a lot of baby boomers retiring. The millennials did not really form households as quickly as other people. One of those stress points I talked about was that first-time home buyer. We used to have about 40% of our local ownership market go to first-time home buyers, and now it's down to about 30%. And that's pretty much what the national market is doing too. So that's changing things kind of in a big way. And another issue we have in Colorado is that we're just not building townhomes and condominiums, which are often entry product, and we have a legal statewide problem with developing that kind of product, and that's again stressing that entry into home ownership, which puts more people in rental than we are used to seeing, and causes stress there too. But where I started was saying that planning's already moving forward with that request to reduce the minimum house size. That was something that we found in our study too. We don't have to go after that.
Okay, so a lot of these recommendations, or some of these recommendations, are existing things the city's already doing about affordable housing. Let's keep doing them. Is that kind of
or tweak what we're doing,
okay,
you know, based on what we're seeing in this study. But of course, what we're seeing in this study, everybody else is looking at from different lenses all over the city anyway. Right. We're just kind of doing a snapshot of what does our housing system look like and where are the stresses. And so we are seeing a lot of progress in other departments, and we're just monitoring that, encouraging that, influencing that, and then we're going to take on some projects after council gives us direction to go deeper into.
Okay, so, sorry.
And as Sue alluded to, it's a balancing act. There are departments looking at this from a different perspectives, and there are a lot of considerations to take into account. We have limited land supply in the community, and we have a fixed growth management area, and you know, lack of supply or limited supply can drive up demand, and you know, that's a situation that we're in where prices are going up for the land itself, and that can sometimes be at odds. You know, increasing land supply can be at odds with some of our other community goals like open space protection and conservation of resources. And so it really is looking at how we bring all of that together in a mutually beneficial way.
So much of this is at least, if not the clash of policies, the looking at them and trying to make them coexist easily. A great example of that is our occupancy ordinance here in Fort Collins. So one of the recommendations early on, one of the things the consultant looked at was what we like to call the U+2. So the occupancy rule of 3 unrelated. And that has been extremely positive and successful at nuisance remediation. Some people feel like that has really benefited overall housing affordability. Some people argue exactly the opposite way, that it's hurt housing affordability and that we have housing stock that could easily accommodate more than 3 people. And wouldn't that help us house more people if we were able to open that up? And we heard specifically from seniors that they had an interest in that. So that was kind of a tension. And what we did, at least for now, is compromise and say, you know what, there are some code provisions that will allow seniors to do more than have 3 people live together. So why don't we look at what is already existing in the code, see if that works, and also quantify the need. Are there really a lot of people that aren't able to do what they want to do under the current law? And if that's true, let's change it. But if we can accommodate it under different ways under the existing code, we don't open up this issue that really the city's polarized on. Half the people love it, half the people don't.
Right, okay. So are there opportunities for the public to really comment on these issues and these recommendations? I know you're in the very early stages. The November 25th meeting with City Council is a work session, so no decisions will be made. But where can people go? How can they get in touch with you? Where can they find previous materials on this?
Well, our website's loaded with data packs, PowerPoints, the draft study. So there's a lot of great information available for people that want to delve in, and for all those policy wonks out there. Okay. And so that's a great way to get your information. The way to give feedback, we are going to boards and commissions. We'll be going to community groups. If people would like us to come speak to their group, they can contact me, and my information's on the website as well. And they can email me their thoughts and concerns. We will incorporate everything we hear into our final recommendations and make sure we pass on information that we receive. And then, I don't know, we talked about getting a form on the website for feedback, and I'm just not sure if that's going to happen or not, but they can always email me.
Okay, great. Any closing thoughts about this subject as we wrap up our time together?
This is a really important study for our community, and it's a great first step. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done, and there will be a lot of implementation that comes out of this, and it will really be an adaptive process. The market works in cycles, housing preferences and demand changes constantly, and so it's something we're monitoring very closely, and we're trying to come up with the best responses to serve us now and into the future.
Okay, great.
We are not alone with dealing with this problem. This is a local issue. It's a national issue. There's different pressure points in different markets, but as a country, we need to look at our housing stock, our housing system, and where the future is driving us. So.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Sue Beck Firkus. Thank you, Rebecca Everett. I appreciate you joining me today. And thanks for watching. We'll be back next month on Full Circle.